Hypocrisy. Hypocrisy. We all have it, some more than others. I've been guilty of being a hypocrite, but there's a special kind of hypocrisy that you don't get to hold on to if you are also the leader of this country. Before I say anything else, I'm going to play this and try not to listen to this as politics just for a second. Just listen for what Mark Carney is asking us Canadians to do. This isn't just government policy. He's talking about you, me, our money, where you should spend it, what you should buy, and where you should go. Watch.
At this decisive moment, Canadians are demonstrating just how strong we are. It started quietly. People choosing a wine from the Okanagan over one from California. Anyone had any bourbon recently? No, things on there. Sorry. A family planning a vacation to Prince Edward Island instead of booking flights to Florida. Canadians are rediscovering our country. The Cabot Trail in October. The Columbia Icefield in June. The Festival International de Jazz à Montréal en juillet. The prairies that harvest where the sky goes on forever. Small individual acts of solidarity, but repeated millions of times. And together they make a statement. We are the masters of our destiny. Canada's new government is right there with you, inspired. For example, with our new Buy Canadian policy, when the federal government spends, we will select Canadian suppliers by default. We are going to build Canada strong with Canada Steel, Canadian aluminum, Canadian lumber, Canadian workers.
Okay, so there's something about that speech that really bothered me. And at first, I couldn't really put my finger on it because supporting Canadian businesses is fine. I mean, it's what we should do. We love Canada. Buying Canadian, good. And reducing our dependence on the United States, I mean, a really good argument could be made for that. But that's not really what he just said, was it? I mean, just listen to the examples that he chose. You bought Okanagan wine instead of California wine. You didn't drink American bourbon. Your family went to PEI, which is beautiful, by the way, instead of Florida. And what does Carney call all those things? Acts of solidarity. And that's different because now we're not just talking about trade policy anymore. We're talking about basically our personal choices as Canadians. How you spend is now suddenly a reflection of how you stand as it relates to how you feel about this country. And while I was listening to this, I kept thinking of something that I had read years ago, and I had to go back to it. And when I pulled it back up, it was... I'm going to put it up on the screen. So this is Machiavelli, Niccolo Machiavelli. And this is from a famous book that some of you have probably read called The Prince. He wrote it in 1513, let's say 500 years ago. And he was giving advice to a ruler on how to hold on to power. And this is out of chapter 18 from The Prince. And in that chapter, Machiavelli is talking about how to keep your word. I put it into plain English because some people wouldn't understand. You have to be good at hiding it. You have to be a great pretender. And people are so easy and so wrapped up in whatever's in front of them right now that anybody who sets out to fool them will always find somebody willing to be fooled. A ruler doesn't actually need all the good qualities people admire. He needs to look like he has them, look merciful, look loyal, look decent, look honest. Because people judge by what they see. Everybody gets to see you. Almost nobody gets close enough to actually know you. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Very few really know what you are. And then Machiavelli gives this example. There's a ruler around right now, he says, and I won't name him. He never talks about anything except peace and good faith, and he's the enemy of both. Now, what happens when we stop listening to what Mark Carney portrays himself as to everybody and look at how Mark Carney has actually lived? Because, like in his speech, he just established the standard. Canada, 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 wine, your vacations, your money. So let's look at this. Where does Mark Carney get his education? Where did he get his economics degree? Harvard. Except the Harvard relationship doesn't end when he's a kid. Decades later, he ends up on Harvard's board of trustees, one of the university's governing bodies. And so I start to think, if we're having this conversation about Canadian economic independence, why does so much of Mark Carney's own story keep running through the United States? That's a good question. But then I get to his career. Goldman Sachs, 13 years. This is not a summer job for Carney. 13 years. This is where he built his career in international finance before getting into central banking. And I started asking myself, would Mark Carney be Mark Carney without the United States Goldman Sachs? Would he have the wealth, the connections, the reputation? And then it just keeps going on and on. Bloomberg. Carney becomes chairman of the board of the American corporation Bloomberg. Stripe. board of directors. Another American company, board of directors. PIMCO, Global Advisory Board. The Peterson Institute in Washington. Watershed in San Francisco. And now I'm sitting here looking at all this, and I'm thinking, hang on a second. The Prime Minister was just telling all Canadians to pull away, consciously, their economic lives out of the United States. And this guy has an absolutely enormous amount of America in his own economic file, his portfolios. But forget the resume for a sec. His resume isn't really even the part that gets me, and it shouldn't get you. It's the money that did it for me. Actually, we got a window into what he owned before this whole blind trust fiasco. Stripe shares, Watershed shares, and a professionally managed investment account containing shares in more than 560 companies. Sure, Carney didn't pick each stock. That's fine. But look at his holding. Apple, Amazon, Google, Tesla, BlackRock, Vanguard, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Walmart. I can't keep going on. Netflix. American company after American company of him investing in and profiting off of. So now I go back to his speech. If my family and your family should spend their money in PEI rather than in Florida, and it's important enough for the Prime Minister that he has to say it and describe it as some kind of act of solidarity. So the question I have, I guess, for Mark is, if you're so Canada solidarity, why are you so heavily invested in the American economy? I'm asking, can you explain that to me? So let's look very quickly about your holdings in Brookfield and the intrinsic value that comes with it. You have in USD, $6.8 million, and there were deferred share units. You have another $3 million US as a reported valuation. So you're at about 9.8 million USD in identifiable Brookfield options and deferred units. And before I get into the other compensation, let me look at Brookfield itself. As of December 31st, 2024, Brookfield held 64% in US dollars and only 2% in Canadian dollars. 64% is US. And Mark Carney is telling all Canadians to choose Okanagan wine over California wine, because that's an act of solidarity, right, Mark? So how does this work? I mean, seriously, where is the line where we go from authentic to hypocrite? Because apparently the Canadians that are standing now in liquor stores, they're being told that they have a national obligation to think about where their stupid $20 bottle of wine comes from. But when we're talking about Mark Carney's millions of dollars, when we're talking about his Harvard education, not McGill, not Queens, not Toronto, Harvard. When we talk about his Goldman Sachs career, his Bloomberg career, his PIMCO career, American equities, and a Brookfield fortune that's at 64% invested in the US market, with all of his investments with them, and only 2% in Canada. If Canadians should rethink where they spend their money, because this is supposedly some part of taking control of our destiny, when did Mark Carney stop applying this rule to Mark Carney? Was it before or after Harvard? Was it before or after your 13 years at Goldman Sachs? Was it before Bloomberg and Stripe? Before or after your millions of dollars in Brookfield? Because this is what I can't get past. He's not merely telling government to buy Canadian. That would be one thing. He's looking at ordinary people like us and saying, your bottle of wine matters. Your family vacation matters. Your individual financial decisions matter. Okay, Mark, but so do the decisions that you make matter. And if Mark Carney wants to make economic decisions as a standard for what nationalism in Canada is, then we all as Canadians have every right to look at your career and where you made your millions, because it wasn't Canada. I think we need to all not only ask ourselves this question, but directly to Mark Carney. Hey, Mark, why does this principle of nationalism suddenly appear so important only after you've made your millions of dollars before becoming PM in the United States? Why should we decide whether or not we should keep investing in the US when that's where you made all your millions and are currently still making your millions through your investments? Because if this is a principle, Mark, this applies directly to you too. And if it doesn't exactly apply to you, then what the hell are we all watching? And since you feel so strongly that us Canadians, through an act of solidarity, should no longer invest in America, then I think the most obvious question that I have is this. Why the have you not divested all of your American investment and put them all in Canada, since it's an act of solidarity, right? Right.